Welcome to today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at how immigration shaped Western Canada
Okay.
in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
Right.
You know, you've given us a really interesting mix of sources for this one. We've got study guides,
Okay.
briefing documents,
Yeah.
FAQs, even a textbook chapter.
Cool.
So
yeah.
it feels like a really great opportunity to kind of explore this in
I
depth
think so.
and hopefully uncover some of those insightful aha moments for our listeners.
Absolutely. And it's such a pivotal period in Canadian history.
Yeah.
I mean, a time of real westward expansion.
Right.
We're going to see how Prime Minister Laurier's vision for the West
Okay.
and Clifford Sifton's strategies for attracting immigrants
Right.
really set the stage for this massive influx of people from all over the world.
So Laurier had like a vision for the West.
Yeah.
What were his goals? How did immigration play into that?
He really wanted to see the West transformed into this bustling hub of economic activity. He truly believed that a larger population would lead to more farms, more industry, and ultimately more prosperity for the entire nation.
Yeah.
But convincing people to move to what was then considered a remote and challenging frontier.
Right.
Well, that wasn't going to be easy.
So that's where sifting comes in.
Exactly.
And I mean, some of these sources mention some pretty creative tactics
Oh, yeah.
to attract immigrants.
He was a master of marketing,
Like you say.
posters, pamphlets. He even sponsored tours for foreign journalists.
Really?
Oh, yeah. There's even a story about a taxidermied buffalo being sent to London
Wow.
to showcase the bounty of the West.
Taxidermied buffalo.
Yeah,
That's one way to get attention.
sure.
I mean, were these campaigns entirely honest?
Bro.
The sources also hinted some exaggeration
Mm-hmm.
and disillusionment among those who arrived expecting an easy life.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
While Sifton's efforts were very successful
Yeah.
in drawing a large number of immigrants,
Yeah.
the reality of life on the prairies?
Often fell short of the rosy picture that was painted in those promotional materials.
Of course.
Many newcomers faced harsh conditions, isolation, and a steep learning curve as they adapted to a new environment
Right.
and unfamiliar farming practices.
And it's important to remember that a lot of these immigrants
Yes.
were also fleeing difficult situations in their homelands.
Absolutely.
We see from the sources that there were all sorts of push factors at play.
Yeah.
Overpopulation, religious persecution,
Right.
famines, even just the increasing affordability of transatlantic travel
Yeah. All these things were pushing people to leave their homelands.
when seeking something new.
Exactly.
Right.
These push factors combine with the pull factors of Canada,
Yeah.
the promise of free or cheap land, job opportunities,
Right.
a growing agricultural sector,
Yeah.
created a really powerful incentive for people to seek a new life in the West.
So one specific example that the sources highlight is the development of Marquis wheat.
Can you tell us a bit more about how this new variety of wheat impacted immigration
Yeah.
and settlement patterns?
Marquis wheat was a true game changer.
Okay.
It ripened earlier, unlike traditional varieties,
Mm-hmm.
making it much more suitable for the shorter growing season on the Canadian prairies.
Okay.
This meant that farmers could produce a more reliable crop,
Gotcha.
even in areas previously considered too risky
Right.
because of the early frost.
Yeah.
So this innovation really opened up vast new areas for settlement
Okay.
and contributed to the rapid growth of the wheat industry in Western Canada.
So we've got this massive influx of people arriving in Western Canada.
Yes.
All with their own unique backgrounds and motivations. Were
Right.
they all welcomed with open arms?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The sources paint a very complex picture of the immigrant experience,
Right.
highlighting both the opportunities and the challenges they faced.
Yeah.
While Canada certainly needed settlers, not everyone was equally welcome.
Right.
Some groups faced discrimination and prejudice.
While others struggled to adapt to the harsh conditions and social isolation of the prairies.
The story of the bar colony really stood out to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a prime example of how things could go wrong, even with good intentions.
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us a bit more about their experience?
The bar colonists were a group of British Anglicans
Right.
who came to the West with really high hopes
Yeah.
of establishing a thriving community.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, their journey was marked by poor planning mismanagement
Oh.
and a lot of conflict.
Oh, wow.
They faced really severe hardships.
Yeah.
And their leader, Isaac Barr, ultimately left the colony disillusioned
Really?
and facing the anger of those that he had brought to Canada.
I even read that the colonists tried to pelt him with eggs as he left.
Yeah, that story has become a bit of a legend.
Wow.
It's a humorous anecdote,
Right.
but it really highlights the frustration
Yeah.
and disillusionment that many settlers felt when the reality of their new life
Right.
didn't match their expectations. And it's such a stark contrast
Yeah.
to the experience of the Hutterites,
Right.
who also feature quite prominently in the sources.
Yes.
I mean, they seem to fare much better,
Yeah, they did.
adapting to the prairie landscape and establishing thriving communities.
Exactly.
Right.
The Hutterites were a pacifist group
Okay.
fleeing persecution in Europe and Russia.
Wow.
Their communal lifestyle and strong religious beliefs really helped them
Yeah.
navigate the challenges of settling in a new land. They were skilled farmers.
Yeah.
They quickly established self-sufficient communities.
Yeah.
And those communities have continued to thrive to this day.
Right.
Their story is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of so many immigrant groups.
So we have these two very different experiences. The struggles of the Bar colony,
Yes.
the successes of the Hutterites,
Yeah.
and then there's the story of the British home children,
Right.
which raises some pretty uncomfortable questions.
Yes, it does.
I mean, sending thousands of children across the ocean,
Yeah.
many of whom ended up in exploitative situations,
Right.
seems shocking by today's standards.
It absolutely does.
Right.
The British Home Children Program really highlights a darker side of immigration, where children were often seen as a source of cheap labor,
Yeah.
rather than individuals deserving of care and protection.
Of course.
It's a reminder that the history of immigration isn't always positive,
Right.
and that we need to be critical of narratives that celebrate nation building
Yeah.
while overlooking the experiences of those who were marginalized or exploited
Right.
along the way. And, while we're talking about groups
Yeah.
who faced particular challenges,
Right.
it's so important to remember the Francophones,
Yes.
who were already well established in Western Canada.
Of course.
I mean, they played such a significant role
Yeah.
in the fur trade and early settlement,
Right.
shaping the region's cultural landscape long before this wave of immigration.
That's a really good point.
Yeah,
It does seem like their contributions often get overshadowed
they do.
in the kind of larger narrative of Western settlement.
Yeah, and their experience really highlights another layer of complexity
Okay.
in this whole story of immigration.
Right.
That push to attract English-speaking settlers, particularly under Sifton's policies,
Right.
led to this real sense of marginalization among Francophones.
Right.
They felt that their language and their culture were being sidelined,
Yeah.
which created these tensions and fueled a sense of resentment.
The sources actually mentioned that this feeling of being pushed aside
Yeah.
stemmed in part from broken promises related to bilingualism.
Right.
I have to admit, I'm not totally familiar with that aspect of Canadian history.
Okay.
Can you elaborate a bit on that for our listener?
Sure. Canada was formed
Yes.
through this process called Confederation in 1867,
Okay.
which united several British colonies into a single country.
Right.
And this act included provisions for bilingualism and protection of French language rights, particularly in areas with significant Francophone populations.
Okay.
However, the focus on attracting English-speaking settlers to the West,
Right.
coupled with policies that favored English in education and government, created this sense of betrayal
Wow.
among Francophones.
Yeah.
They felt that the spirit of Confederation, which promised equality for both English and French, wasn't really being upheld.
So we've got all these different groups arriving in the West,
Yeah.
each with their own unique stories and challenges.
Right.
Did this influx of people from such diverse backgrounds ultimately create a more cohesive society
Right.
or a more fragmented one?
That's a question that historians continue to debate.
Okay.
I think the sources suggest that the initial response was a real mix of anxiety and excitement.
Okay.
There was this real concern about maintaining social cohesion in the face of such cultural diversity.
Right.
Some advocated for assimilation,
Okay.
encouraging newcomers to shed their old ways
Yeah.
and adopt a more Canadian identity,
Okay.
which often meant conforming to Anglo-Canadian norms.
That must have been a challenge for a lot of immigrants.
Oh, it was a huge challenge.
Right.
It created tensions and raised all sorts of questions about what it truly meant to be Canadian.
Of course.
But alongside these anxieties,
Yeah.
we also see remarkable examples of cooperation and mutual aid.
Okay.
The sources mention these community bees,
Okay.
as a common practice. These were events where neighbors, regardless of their background, would come together to help each other with tasks like barn raising, harvesting, or even quilting.
Those sound like a great way to build community.
They were, and they really highlight a key theme that emerges from these sources. This idea that despite those challenges and anxieties, there was also this strong spirit of resilience.
And a recognition that everyone's success was really interconnected. You know, the spirit of helping one another became such a defining characteristic of the West.
And what about the role of agriculture in all of this? It seems like the shared experience of farming,
absolutely,
particularly wheat farming, would have played a part in shaping a common identity.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
You know, the success of Marquis wheat and the growth of the wheat industry really helped to unify these diverse communities across the prairies. Farmers, you know, regardless of their background, were all connected by this shared pursuit. The challenge of making a living from the land. You know, the dependence on weather patterns. The satisfaction of a bountiful harvest.
It's amazing to see how something as seemingly simple as a new variety of wheat could have such a profound impact on social and economic development.
It really is.
Did this sense of unity extend
beyond individual communities?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
In the early 20th century, a movement known as the Great Grain Growers emerged.
Okay.
And this organization brought farmers together to advocate for their economic interests and lobby for policies that would benefit the agricultural sector. It transcended those cultural and linguistic differences, uniting farmers of various backgrounds under this common cause.
So we see these threads of unity and cooperation woven into the fabric of Western Canadian society.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing, was it?
Of course not. Tensions persisted. And the path to creating a truly inclusive society was long and complex.
Of course.
But I think this period really laid the groundwork for the multicultural Canada that we know today. It's a reminder that nation building is a process, you know, this continuous effort to navigate the challenges and embrace those opportunities that arise from diversity.
It seems like the story of immigration in Western Canada is this tapestry of contrasting experiences, hardship and hope, division and unity, all woven together. It's a story that challenges us to look beyond simple narratives and grapple with the complexities of the past.
Exactly. And by understanding these complexities, we gain a much richer understanding of how Canada came to be. You know, the diverse and evolving nation it is today.
Speaking of complexities, the sources make it clear that not every immigrant group had the same level of success or acceptance.
Of course.
We've talked about the Bar Colony. We've talked about the Hutterites. What about other groups? The Ukrainians, for example, played a huge role in settling the prairies. But I haven't heard them mentioned yet.
You're right to bring them up. The Ukrainians were one of the largest immigrant groups to arrive in Western Canada.
During this period. And their story is a remarkable one. You know, they often faced prejudice and discrimination. Being stereotyped as foreigners and unassimilable. They often ended up on the least desirable homesteads. Facing really challenging conditions and isolation.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It was. But, you know, they were able to overcome those obstacles. Absolutely. They drew upon their strong agricultural traditions, a deep sense of community to thrive on the prairies.
That's great.
You know, their cultural contributions from traditional music and dance to their distinctive style of architecture have really become an integral part of the Canadian landscape. Their story, like so many others, is a testament to the resilience and determination of those who sought a new life in Canada.
It's incredible to think about.
It is.
The sheer diversity of people who came to Western Canada during this time.
The British, the Hutterites, the Ukrainians, so many others.
It's remarkable.
Each group brought with them their own unique skills and cultures.
They did.
Or perspectives.
And that's what makes the story of Western Canada so fascinating.
Right.
You know, it wasn't just about settling the land. It was about building a new society.
Right.
A mosaic of cultures and traditions that continues to evolve and shape Canada's identity to this day.
And as we kind of delve deeper into this mosaic, we encounter these stories that are both inspiring and unsettling.
Yeah.
And, while we've highlighted some successes,
Right.
it's really important to acknowledge that not everyone's experience was positive.
Absolutely.
Right.
Alongside the stories of resilience and triumph, we also find stories of exploitation, discrimination, and cultural clashes.
Of course.
These darker chapters remind us that the history of immigration is not without its complexities and injustices.
For example, the Chinese immigrants who helped build the Canadian Pacific Railway faced such immense hardship and discrimination.
Absolutely.
Their contributions were essential to connecting the country from coast to coast.
Right.
Yet they were often treated as outsiders. And deny those basic rights.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
The Chinese head tax, which was imposed on Chinese immigrants entering Canada, is just a stark example of the systemic racism they faced.
Of course.
Despite their vital role in nation building. They were often seen as a threat. And subjected to such unfair treatment.
And their experiences serve as a reminder
that
the pursuit of national progress often came at a cost.
It did.
For certain groups.
Yes, understanding those costs. And acknowledging past injustices is a really important part of understanding the complexities of Canadian history.
It seems like the more we uncover about this period.
It does, doesn't it?
The more we realize that the story of immigration in Western Canada is this tapestry woven with threads of triumph and tragedy, progress and prejudice.
Exactly. And by examining both those bright and dark threads of this tapestry, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces that shaped Western Canada and continue to influence the nation's identity today.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface here.
Oh, yeah.
Of this complex and fascinating topic.
Definitely.
I think one thing that strikes me is how relevant these historical events feel to our discussions today about immigration and identity.
It's amazing, isn't it? How many of those anxieties and debates that we see playing out today around immigration actually have their roots in this very period. Those concerns about social cohesion, the balance between encouraging integration and preserving cultural diversity, the economic impact of immigration. These are all themes that echo through the decades.
It's like we're seeing a replay of those early debates about assimilation versus pluralism, but in a modern context.
Absolutely.
Right.
And those stories of those early immigrant groups, the bar colonists struggling to adapt, the Hutterites finding success through their really strong community bonds, the Ukrainians persevering despite prejudice, the Chinese facing systemic racism. These stories offer such valuable insights into the human side of these larger historical trends.
It reminds us that behind those grand narratives of nation building, there are always individual stories of resilience, adaptation, but also of struggle and injustice.
Absolutely. And I think by understanding those individual stories, we gain a much deeper appreciation for the complexities of the immigrant experience and how it has shaped, the very fabric of Canadian society.
So as we kind of wrap up here, I'm wondering what lessons can we take away from this deep dive into the past? What can we learn from the successes and failures of this period that might inform our approach to immigration today?
That's a great question. And I think one of the key takeaways is the importance of recognizing those contributions of immigrants. The sources make it clear that immigration was essential to the development of Western Canada.
Of course.
These newcomers brought skills and labor and a diversity of perspectives that really enriched the social and cultural landscape. So, acknowledging those contributions, both past and present, I think is crucial to fostering a more inclusive and equitable society.
And what about those concerns about social cohesion? And the challenges of integrating newcomers? I mean, those anxieties seem to be as prevalent today.
They do.
As they were a century ago.
Absolutely. But, I think the history of Western Canada also offers a hopeful message. While there were definitely tensions and challenges, we also see those remarkable examples of cooperation and community building and that gradual emergence of a more pluralistic society. It's a reminder that diversity, while sometimes challenging, can also be a source of strength and resilience.
It's a story that really challenges us to move beyond those simplistic narratives of us versus them.
Yeah.
And recognize that shared humanity that binds us together.
Absolutely.
Regardless of our backgrounds.
I couldn't agree more.
Right.
And I think, by embracing those complexities of our history, learning from both the triumphs and the missteps of the past, we can really build a more just and equitable future for all Canadians.
Well, that's a powerful thought to end on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for guiding us through this fascinating deep dive.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Into the history of immigration in Western Canada.
Thank you for having me.
I know I've learned a lot, and I hope our listener has too.
I hope so too.
It's a story that continues to resonate.
Absolutely.
Reminding us that the journey toward a more inclusive and just society
is
an ongoing one.
It is.